In this section of the DVD, I'm going to run through fitting magic filters to DSLR lenses. To be honest, it's all pretty straightforward, so we haven't included it in the main video, but it's here just for your information. First job is to open the packaging and take the filter out. The packaging itself actually, as I'm sure you all know, has got instructions on how to do this and also how to shoot the filter. The first lens we're going to look at is the Nikon 16mm fisheye. This is a lens that I'm sure is going to find a lot of popularity with the Nikon D3 and D700 out now, so I think we'll be doing a lot more of these filters than we have in the DX digital days. This lens is rather unusual in that it's got a filter holder on the back, which you need to just unlock and unscrew. And then into that filter holder, simply take the filter, drop it in, and that's ready now to be reattached to the back of the camera. So just put that in, push it in, turn it. That's locked and absolutely ready to go on the camera and be ready to use. The next lens we're going to look at is the Nikon 10.5 fisheye. This is a popular lens for the DX Nikon cameras. We provide the filters for this pre-cut into this delta shape, which allows them to slot into the rear filter holder on this lens. In fact, several Nikon lenses have this rear filter shape. The Nikon 14mm wide-angle lens also has it. Simply to fit this filter, you just slide the filter into the filter holder on the back of the lens, and that now is ready to be used. The next lens we're going to look at is the Sigma 15mm fisheye. Actually, a large number of the Sigma wide-angle lenses have the same filter mount on the back of them as this, and they all take the same size filter, which is great if you like Sigma wide-angle lenses. Again, this is a filter mount very similar to the Nikon. Simply take the filter and slide it into the slot on the back of the camera, and that's in and ready to use. The next lens, or lenses, are what tend to be the wide-angle rectilinears, a large number of which don't have rear filter holders. For these lenses, the best place to attach the filter is on the front of the lens, and in this case we use the Magic M77. Simply with these lenses, you just drop the filter onto the front and it drops, and then if you use a diopter, you can simply just screw the diopter onto the front of the lens. I have to say, if you don't use a diopter, you really should be using a diopter because it will greatly improve the corner sharpness of your photos. And if you're using a wide-angle lens without a diopter, you've probably got pretty smudgy corners going on. But for some reason, well, I know why, but for various reasons, a number of underwater photographers don't use diopters these days, which I think is very stupid. So we do provide an alternative solution. I'll just take the filter back out. You can actually buy from us a filter holder, which can go onto the lens like this. And then I can drop the filter into that, as so. And then with the other part of the filter, which comes with it, I can put it on the retaining ring, and that holds the 77mm filter in place, and that's now ready to dive. There are a few other lenses that people like to use underwater with filters. Obviously, generally filter photography is a wide-angle technique, but there are sort of quite a few mid-range zooms and things which are quite popular. This is one of mine. This is a Sigma 17-70, and this has a 72mm thread on it. So the 77mm filter is too large for this. There's several ways you can solve this problem. One is to use a step-up ring. Simply, this is a filter ring that's got two threads on it, one narrow, one wider. Simply screw this into your lens. You can do this one-handed. Drop the filter into the step-up ring, and then attach your diopter, which I'm just going to have to get out of the box. Attach your diopter to the front of that, and that's then, once that's screwed on, that's ready to go. That's, for me, by far the easiest way, and I would certainly recommend that as a pretty simple solution. These step-up rings are very cheap to buy, and just about any camera shop will be able to order those in for you in a couple of days. The alternative, if this is your only lens and you don't want to buy a step-up ring and to use a large diopter, is to trim the filter down to the right size using the stencil. And we have these stencils on our website which you can print out to use. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the stencil to cut this filter down to size. First job is just to cut the filter up. So I'm just going to zip across here. And then you don't have to make that first cut carefully, but you do need to, let's turn that over so you can see, you do need to fold the stencil carefully along the midline. Now just simply place the filter inside the ring. If you just hold this up to the light, you can check this is lined up correctly. And then holding this securely, simply cut round the stencil, trimming down your filter nice and neatly using the stencil here. This is a 72, which I measured already on the lens. The stencil's got markings here for 72mm, 67, 62, 58, 55 and 52, which are all the common sizes that you're likely to need for the various DSLR lenses out there. And then with that now trimmed down to size, I can just simply slide the stencil out. It's not a perfect cut, but that really doesn't matter for this sort of application because those edges are never going to be anywhere near the frame. And then simply slot that into thing. It fits exactly, and I didn't even measure that beforehand. And that's now ready for the diopter to go over the top and screw in and hold that in place. So it's just like that. The final lens we're going to look at is a Nikon Fit Takina 10-17. This is a very popular lens in underwater photography. I certainly love it and have been shouting very loudly about it for the last couple of years. I'm just going to use a small piece of filter. I think this is the Sigma filter I was just fitting to the Sigma fisheye lens. And I'm going to just trim this down to put on there. I'm just going to take a couple of mils off the edge of it. You don't actually need to do that, but that's just to make sure it's neat. And just position it neatly over the back of the lens, covering it. Now, this actual piece on the Takina is actually a bit loose for some reason on all of them. So don't press down too hard on it, otherwise you can push it down and it goes to another place and you just have to lift it up again. And then simply to secure that filter, I'm just going to take a couple of pieces of tape and just put them over, I'm just going to put it on this side first so you can see what I'm doing, over the opposite corners of the filter. Obviously keeping them away from where the lens is going to be. And that's the filter then secured into place. And then simply just trim those away, those bits away with a pair of scissors. And it's nice and easy to do. And once these are trimmed away, oh, that's a little bit fiddly. It's hard to do this without getting in the way of the lens. Once those are trimmed away, you can just neatly tap them down so they're nice and out of the way, and that's now ready to go onto the camera. And that's about it for the DSLR lenses. They're that simple to fit. Once the filters are on, they're then ready just to go onto the cameras and they're ready to be used.